Hello everybody, welcome to episode 30 of the Joel Helluva series, Sketcheleshious Monday. Hey, you there! I want to remind everybody that if you end up liking this video, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. And right now, YouTube says that over 90% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so it would really help, and with that... Hello everybody, I'm Joel Helluva, your guys' host for episode 30 of the Joel Helluva series, Sketcheleshious Monday, where today I'm going to be drawing a character that goes by the name of Blitz from the most recent short called Helluva Boss from Vivziepop. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the pilot episode for those of you that are aware of what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about the most recent short that is now the most recent over top of Zootopia, which was, well, recently the most recent, but now this is the most recent, if that makes any sense. So this short is called The Murder Family, which is a add-on to the sort of Helluva Boss sort of storyline, which is in the same universe as Has Been Hotel, for those of you that are aware. In today's video, I'm going to be drawing Blitz, which is sort of the main character of IMP, which is actually sort of like the immediate murder professionals of sorts, as at least that's what they call themselves. And Blitz is actually one of my favorite characters aside from Luna and the rest of the IMP team. But anyway, today I'm going to be drawing Blitz, which, as I said, is sort of like the head of the IMP team. So I thought I'd draw him, and since he's the main character, and recently we got the Murder Family short, so I thought I'd draw Blitz from that just to sort of show my appreciation for how great that animation turned out. So enough of me talking, let's go ahead and get into a time-lapse speed draw and see how Blitz turns out in the end. And with that, here we are with Blitz, the leader of IMP from Helluva Boss. So this is one of those drawings that I've been trying to draw more freehand from using reference photos, which is what I usually do. And I don't like taking a lot from reference photos, as to a certain extent, if you draw too much, you're just basically copying off of a reference photo that can be considered stealing art, which I'm not for. You should not steal art, so I've been trying to freehand a lot more of it. So what I did with this drawing is actually what I've been trying to do a lot more of recently, which is draw a lot of it freehand off of memory, and then for the fine details that I couldn't remember, I would actually then go to reference photos to draw some things like the symbol in the middle of his head and things like that. And then moving down, I'm going to go ahead and start at his head, and then we'll move down to like his vest and his boots and all of that stuff. So starting at his head, you can see here we have his horns coming off of either side, and for one thing that I'd like to note first off here is you can see that he's just sort of like in a central pose with a lot of, well, lack of posing and any sort of angling, which is one thing that I've been trying to do to start off myself freehanding a lot of things, because my idea was that if I do one side of something well, is I can sort of use it as a bit of a reference for the other side, which you can kind of see here I did with the horns. So this one actually I drew kind of better than the other one, so I ended up drawing this one a little bit off of this one as a reference. So, well, I think it's sort of working, but as you can see, this one didn't turn out nearly as good as this one because it's a bit more choppy in areas, because I was drawing with my right hand, as I'm dominant with my right hand. I can't really draw at all with my left. And then his head itself, as you can see, sort of comes down with a point down at the bottom where his chin is, which is also where the bottom of his mouth meets, which, as you can kind of see, it looks like someone got mad at IMP. Maybe they got a bad deal or something like that and took it out on Blitz's mouth, because you can see it looks like someone just punched him a couple times, because his teeth are absolutely whack in this, because I had to draw them a couple times over. So they ended up looking kind of weird with all the proportions, like this tooth is a lot bigger than this one on this side. But either way, if I would have redrawn it too many times more, it would have looked a lot worse, so I decided to just go with this. And unlike the mouth, the eyes, actually, I pretty much nailed them on the first try, at least as much as I can actually make this look good, with him actually looking at the camera, or at least looking at you, which is what it looks like, which is sort of what I was going for. Usually, I have a hard time with actually drawing eyes and positioning them to look a certain direction, but nonetheless, I usually try to make characters look at the camera or as if they were looking at you, because I don't really have a lot of skill in actually sort of posing eyes, as I just said, so I tried to just give him sort of like a central pose for the eyes. As you can see, they're just sort of looking as if he was looking at you, and then you do have his little marks on either side of his eye with his eyebrows, and then that little symbol in the middle with the 2 marks above it, and then you can see there a little spike in between his horns, which is mainly because in the actual sort of Blitz character, if you ever get to look at the back of his head, he has some spikes that come off of the back, and I wanted to represent that sort of showing up there. And then moving to his vest, you can kind of see here we have sort of like this neck guard, or like this flare, whatever you want to call it, coming off that has this little sort of line in the middle that in the actual version is a different color, but I just put the lines there for this. And then in the middle of his vest, where it sort of meets in the middle, you can kind of see we have a skull, which is more prominent on the actual versions that the animation team would have drawn, but I tried to represent it as best I could with how small I drew this here. Otherwise, I had the same problem with if I drew it too many times more, it would have looked a lot worse, so I just decided to go with this. And then off to the sides, you can see here, I believe this is his left hand. Yeah, just trying to mess with, because obviously I'm facing him, so my right, which is what he looks like, his left hand is actually his right hand. So here on his right hand, you can see here I had him sort of like exposing his palm, sort of waving, which is what I usually do with characters, is I have one hand waving, and then one hand is usually off to the side or sort of like tucked behind the back, which as you can see here, this hand, or his right hand, is sort of like turned the other direction, so you can actually sort of like see the top of his hand, and then the rest of it is behind his back. Even, well, technically speaking, I believe you'd actually be able to see it between here because of all of the ripping in his vest towards the bottom at the loose ends here, where you can see all of these sort of exposed spots that in real life, if you were to actually look at his vest, you could just simply see straight through because, well, it's ripped and there's nothing even there anymore. And then moving down to his legs, you can see here I drew his boots semi-well in my opinion, even though this one I had a problem where I erased with too much sort of graphite on the end of the eraser that had accumulated, and it sort of imprinted a lot of it, so I couldn't erase any of that. But anyway, the boots did turn out semi-well. They don't look too horrible, but anyway, moving up to his tail, you can see the little spike here that I do actually like. That's another one of my favorite parts of Blitz and Blitz's character. And then you do have these 2 lines, which unlike the sort of like the part on his neck here, I did decide to color in. And then here you have, well, actually, I forgot to draw it on this specific version, but on the Blitz character himself, you actually have some more spikes, sort of like in this area of his tail generally. And then you can see here, this does come up between his legs, and they connect to presumably where his tailbone would be, but then again, well, Blitz is everything besides a human, so I don't really know. But anyway, with all that being said, there is my not-so-good drawing of Blitz from the Vivziepop series, Helluva Boss. So with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed drawing Blitz,